Hit it, Rick. Yeah.
Is that funky enough?
Yeah,
Is it funky?
Funky.
Right. All
That
right.
was
Hey,
kinda-
everybody.
That was funky and punky.
Funky and punky. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Drummers Education Connection. I'm Rick Stojak, and I'm so happy to be here with my greatest friends ever and one of my favorite drummers in the world, Johnny Kelly. So we have up in the Bay Area, Jeremy Steamroller Steinkohler, Bart Ropley in Ontario. That's Ontario, LA.
California.
Chip Ritter, the Magic Man from Tucson. And oh my God, we've got the drummer from Typo Negative, Quiet Riot, a million other bands. What Kill Devil Kill,
Kill Devil Hill.
Kill Devil Hill. I'm
Danzig.
sorry, Danzig too.
Danzig.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
Johnny
that's right. You were
Kelly.
in Danzig. That's
Oh,
right.
yes.
That's cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Johnny, we're really, really excited to see you, and thanks for coming. I'm a huge Type O Negative fan. Folks, if you don't know Type O Negative, where have you been? You got to check it out. They are like the kings of doom metal, like a goth metal kind of thing. They were known as the Drab Four. And yeah. And the music, so there's something magical about Type O Negative music because it's so slow and so dark, but so heavy that it's soothing in a way and intense all at the same time. So there's some kind of fucking magic that you guys have created. And so we listen to it at night. My wife listen to Type O Negative at night, Johnny. So it's like a big deal that you're here. So we really appreciate it that you're here with us.
It's the perfect soundtrack for Halloween.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Put on October Rust in Halloween and you're all set. So Type O Negative, it was what you were in the band for like about 11 years.
Right, like 17
years. Oh man, my mistake. Wow.
Yeah, I joined the band in 1993.
In 1993. Wow.
Yeah, and
that's great.
Right, and then Peter passed away in 2010. So yeah,
we've got a lot to talk about with him, and so he was a genius you got to work with. Well, we always start the show off with a good thing. So, Johnny, do you have a quick little good thing? It could be anything in life, anything, music, life.
I've been doing a lot of recording lately. A lot of recording and a lot. This year was a really busy year for Quiet Riot, and right now we have a really busy December coming up, which is pretty unusual because usually things kind of die off once the holidays start, like around now, like around Thanksgiving, and then usually it's pretty quiet until the winters are usually pretty quiet, but we got a full December on the books coming up. Yeah,
that's not easy to do. That's cool.
It has its challenges, like for years I was used to just fly into one city, get on a tour bus, stay out for a few weeks, and then fly home. Yeah. And now every show is a fly date. And if you have like 2 or 3 of them on a weekend, come Sunday, I'm seeing sideways, because it's not unusual for do your show, go to the hotel. If you're lucky, maybe you can get a shower and a quick nap in, and then you have to be down in the lobby of the hotel at like anywhere between like 2 and 3 in the morning to drive to the airport to go do it again, and then you get picked up in the next city, and then you'll go straight from the airport to sound check, and then to your hotel or whatever, and then again, rinse and repeat. And then
I know it well, man.
Be careful, kids. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
Does coffee help?
Yeah, it's an hourly requirement.
Yes. Bart, what about you? You have a good thing to tell us?
Kind of actually what Johnny said. I've got we are slowing down for the end of the year, so I've got a gig on Saturday, a local gig, which usually doesn't happen on Thanksgiving weekend, but then I leave on the 5th for 5 days. and we have a 5-day run through Nevada and Arizona. And I come home and I'm done for the year. We're not playing on New Year's Eve this year, so I'm happy about that. Staying home, and but got some gigs, so that's a good thing. And then Jeremy, you're never going to believe this. The other day, I got a package on the doorstep from Amazon, and you know what was in that package?
No.
There was a thing of 3-peckered Billy Goat coffee from my friend Rick Stochak. He had sent me a package of 3-pecker Billy Goat coffee.
Yeah.
And dude,
I'm gonna look that up right now.
Yeah.
Johnny, if you're a coffee guy,
Yeah.
you got to have 3-pecker Billy Goat coffee. Rick's been talking about it, and we just got back from PASIC, and like every 5 minutes, Rick and I were getting coffee. So I got home and I got a thing of 3-pecker Billy Goat coffee, and it was outstanding. I've been enjoying it all week. So yeah, that's my good thing. I got some gigs, got some students, and I got some 3-peckered Billy Goat coffee. Jeremy, what about you? What's going on with you that's good, buddy?
No coffee, no Billy Goats.
Damn.
You don't know you're missing, man.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're missing, bro.
I had a great show this past weekend with the Erica Oba Trio in San Francisco. Really, really great hit, and that was super fun. Great crowd. And in December, my son's coming back from college for break. He's a freshman at Northwestern and studying jazz piano.
Nice.
And we have a couple of shows lined up, so I'm super excited to be playing with him when he comes back. Looking forward to that. That's my good thing.
Chip,
How about
what do
you,
you got
Chip?
going on, buddy?
Man, you know what? This yesterday I played a show with Mr. Boogie Woogie from Holland, and we played in Valley del Oro in Mesa, which is an RV park, and we played by the pool, by the big stage and the big huge dance floor, and we thought for sure it was going to be one of those paid rehearsals where we just kind of do the background thing. But then once soon as we started, man, people started flowing in and packing it up and packing the dance floor and getting into it. And it turned out to be a really great time, man. So that's my good thing.
Cool.
I have a bad thing. My bad.
No.
Yeah, I got to share my bad thing. My bad thing is I didn't get a lesson with Jeremy Steinkohler last week.
That's right.
Because I don't have my music yet. I need to get my music ready, but I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
I'm still practicing my lesson from Jeremy Steinkohler when we hung out at PASIC, where he put a flam in front of every roll.
Dude, I've been doing
nice,
that. The
nice.
flam flies. So go.
Yeah.
I didn't invent that. That's an Alan Dawson thing. That's where I got
Very
it from.
cool. Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So Johnny, let's jump into this thing, man. So typo negative and quiet right. I'm going to put it in reverse here a little bit. I want to start with the quiet riot thing, because before we got on, you talked about how you were basically subbing for Frankie. I knew Frankie this much, met him a number of times. We were on a first name basis, and just this a sweetheart of a guy. How did you get to know Frankie, and how did that whole relationship come to be? And what's it like being in Quiet Riot? It's fantastic, man.
I met Frankie. Alex Grassi, the guitar player in Quiet Riot, he's been in the band for like over 20 years. Kevin DeGro brought him in, and I play in a band with him and Dizzy Reed, and called Hookers and Blow.
I know that band.
Yeah.
I know that band. Yeah.
So I had met Frankie a few times through Alex, and like I would talk to Frankie. We were like, like Facebook friends, where we would talk about like drums, like geek out on gear and stuff like that. And so then when Frankie got sick, I had I was telling Alex at the time, they were playing in Dallas. They had a show coming up in Dallas, and I knew Frankie was going in for treatments and stuff. And I was like, look, I said, I'm going to be there anyway. I said, ask Frankie if he wants some help, like help, like with his gear, and, like to, keep an eye on him, so that he would just need his energy just for the show, because I knew what he was going through was kicking his butt. Yeah. And I was like, I said, I'm going to be there anyway. And he was like, I'll ask Frankie. And he got back to me. He was like, yeah, Frankie's into it. He thinks it's a good idea. Thanks. And not long after that, I had mentioned to him, I was like, look, if there's a situation that comes up where Frankie can't make a show, I'll help out. And not really expecting anything to come of it. I was just trying to be helpful to my friend. And 2 days before that Dallas show, Alex calls me. He's like, "We need you to play."
Wow.
And I was like, I was just trying to be nice.
Missed it by that much.
Yeah. So, So I asked Alex, I'm like, all right, send me a set list, and I got cracking on it. And some of the stuff I was certainly familiar with, being a Quiet Riot fan when I was a kid. When I first started playing drums, Metal Hell had just come out, and Frankie was always a big influence of mine when I was younger, and so I worked on the set. Like I said, I literally had 2 days, and
wow.
Yeah, I get to the show, which was like this bigger show. It was like the Wildflower Festival here in Dallas, and we were playing with Rat, and there was like a few thousand people there. It wasn't just like this small, like little, small gig, which I had no idea about either. And I walk into the trailer. I get there. I walk into the trailer, and the rest of the band is there. And I was like, guys, this was a terrible idea. and so like the bass player and the singer, they really don't know me that well. They don't, they hardly know me, and they turn white and they're like, "What do you mean?" It's just like, I was like, I think I bit off more than I could chew. It's like, I only had 2 days with this, and somehow we got through the show without any major train wrecks. And so I spent the 2 days like going on YouTube to find live footage of them and how they would perform the songs live, like get the different beginnings and endings of songs and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, as long as I had the beginning and the endings of the songs, the rest of the middle part we could fudge our way through, like fake it until you make it kind of stuff.
Right.
Yep.
No one remembers the middle parts of the songs.
Right? Yeah, nobody remembers that. So we managed to get through it. And then it went well enough where they kept on asking me, like, would you be available for this show? Are you available for this one? For this one? And it wound up like at that point, that was like somewhere in like the spring of 2019. And they were like, are you available to finish out the rest of the year? Like, Frankie's getting to the point, he's not going to be able to perform. Can you do it? And I had a trip booked, and I had a tour booked in Europe. I said, I'm available for the rest of the year except for 2 weeks. I have a tour coming up in 2 weeks. I can't get out of it. They've already, flights are booked, promotions or promos already done, tickets are on sale. Can't really move it. And fast forward to the following year. Really wasn't that much going on because everything was still up in the air about Frankie and this and that. And then as it was getting closer for Frankie, because he died, I think it was August of that year, 2020. Yeah. And Frankie was trying to get everything in order. He was like, I want the band to keep going, and he was like, I want, get Kelly. So then, they asked me if I would want to, keep the band going, and I did. And then, like the next year, we got Rudy Sarzo back in the band, and everything's been, great. It's been a lot of fun, like play with Rudy Sarzo every night.
That's cool.
Can't beat that.
That's tough. That's tough to beat, and it's just continued. Like it's grown in terms of. On the business side, we wound up getting a much better booking agent and stuff like that. And he was able to get the band better gigs and more gigs. So we've been doing I think this year, we did like 68 shows this year.
Wow.
Which is pretty strong. And the gigs have been better. And again, like what you were saying about your gig, Chip, like some of these places, I thought I played everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started playing with Quiet Riot, and there's like a whole other like universe that has all these other places to play that I had no idea about in cities that I didn't even know existed.
Wow.
And like, so we'll play like in some like random, like, some weird casino, like in the middle of Minnesota somewhere. And I'm like, there's no way that people know about this place.
Oh,
there's no way
dude.
that people know this exists. I was like, we just did all this traveling to just like go to like some, like to play, to some bloodbath.
Yeah.
And then come showtime, the place is packed with people.
Wow.
You know what, man? I play in a band. We do a lot of casino gigs. And I remember one night in North Dakota, we're driving, and it's in the middle of winter time. You get to the casino, it's freezing ass cold. You're out in the middle of nowhere. It's like nobody's going to show up to this gig, and you walk on stage and there's 4,000 people out there. It's like, holy crap, man. It's amazing.
It's been like that so many weekends, even now, like, cool. like playing, like I'm in the band now 5 years. And it's like I see these names of cities on our itineraries, and I'm like, where is this place? I was like, I was like, I've always thought I was a little astute when it came to geography, but this is ridiculous. I was like, there's no way.
Now, what about the management of things? I know that Frankie.
No, there's no airport there.
I had a question as far as management, because I know that, and I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Johnny. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
I know that Frankie took care of a lot of the management stuff like that, like on the quiet ride into things, bookings, and flights, and all that stuff. Is that obviously somebody's taken that over? Is it the new agent, or is there a new manager?
Well, the agent certainly plays a big part in a lot of what's going on. It's not like like we've worked on a very little bit of there's been some discussions about making some new music and things like that. But it's a lot of it. It's just about about the live performance. And we got a rock solid booking agent that gets great gigs, and it keeps the band working, keeps us out there every weekend. And we've been able to become this. I always refer. It's a well-oiled machine. Mm. It's a small group of us. Yeah, it's a small group. We don't even travel with the crew. And it's literally just the four of us, and we just go out there. Our sound checks are done in 30 minutes, and it's so seamless and painless.
Johnny, is hair metal making a comeback? It seems like it's getting more popular.
I don't know if it's making a comeback, but it's become a thing.
Mm-hmm. I would think people would love a Quiet Riot album, another one.
I don't know as far as new music goes, but I know as far as the shows and stuff like that, it's doing really well. Like I said, there's been so many shows where I'm thinking, this place is gonna be a bloodbath, and there's nobody's gonna be there, and then the place is packed.
Yeah.
John, do you have a drum? Sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry. Do you have a drum tech who works for you?
No.
You're setting up.
I do it myself. Yeah. Everything's there. It's all rental gear. I'm playing in Tulsa on Saturday, and I'm driving up. I'm going to drive up instead of flying, and I'm going to bring one of my Vista Light kits.
Mm.
Oh yeah! Oh, cool.
Yeah, because it's close by. At least I get to bring my own gear, and really it's been playing at various levels throughout the years. Even still playing bars after you play Giant Stadium, and then next weekend I was playing at Bar One in Bay Ridge.
Yep.
Right.
So I'm no stranger to setting up my own gear and humping it, but at least with Riot, right? I actually like setting up my own gear. I enjoy it. It's a calm part of my afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to hump the gear, so I'm grateful for that. So there's none of that. I literally travel with my stick bag and my in-ears.
There you go.
That's it. Everything else is provided for me and stuff, so I don't have to worry about my back is fine. I don't have
That's great, man. I've found over the years.
And then at the end of the night, sorry to cut you off. At the end of the night, I just grab my sticks. I grab my sticks in my ears and I leave, and I don't have to pack anything up. So it's relatively painless for me.
Yeah.
There isn't any major inconvenience, and 99.99% of the time, I never have an issue during the performance where I'll have I would need a tech. I think I've broken a couple of snare heads over the past few years, but there's been nothing tragic or catastrophic where it was we had to stop the show because I didn't have a tech to take care of something. That hasn't happened. Knock on wood. Now that I said that,
yeah, right.
I just cursed myself for the rest of the
I
year.
was going to say, you just jinxed yourself, man.
It's not like Bart's Kid where the stage collapsed in on itself and the drums sank down.
I had that happen.
I was just saying that was your gig. Yeah. John, I'd like to ask you about your origins and your upbringing. I know you mentioned before the show you were born in Brooklyn and grew up in New York.
Yes.
Did you study drums? Did you take lessons? Did you play in your school bands?
Funny about the school band thing. I took lessons. There was a guy that lived up the block from me when I was a kid, and he was like, "Do you want to learn how to play drums?" And I was like, "Yes, I want to be Peter Criss." And
right on, man.
And then right, he taught me he gave me a couple of lessons, and my brother would come with me. My brother and I were only 11 months apart. We're Irish twins. And my brother, I was having a hard time just trying to learn how to play like a simple rock beat. And my brother would be there with me. He'd be like, "Oh, you mean like this?" And then that guy would be like, "If you ever want to touch my drum set again, you have to wash my van."
He would tell you that? Yeah. He would tell you that?
He would, "If you want to play my drum set, I need you to wash my car." It was like,
Wow.
And then I that was when I was maybe 11 years old, around there, 11, 12 years old. And then when I got into high school, around the time Mental Health came out and stuff, I started playing drums. And I would go, there was a rehearsal studio literally right up the block from my house. And I would go there, and that's where I learned how to play. And so I'm in high school, and I go to the high school band band leader was also the dean. So the dean already knew me. And so I go to his office, and he's like, "What did you do now, Kelly?" And I was like, no, it's not like that. I said, I want to join band. I want to play drums. And he was like, "Do you know how to read?" I was like, "No." He goes, "Well, then you can't be in band." I was like, "Isn't that what school is for?" I was like, "Aren't you supposed to teach us how to read? It's school."
That's great.
And I knew he just didn't want me in his class. He didn't want to have to deal with me every day in a classroom because he was already dealing with me often in his dean's office. So I knew that he just didn't want to deal with me. And he was like, "Well, if you can't read, then I can't have you in band. I can't use you." And that was it. So I never got to play in band, which I wanted to. And fast forward, I was after high school, I used to work at a rehearsal studio in Brooklyn, which was one of the few places where a lot of people like me. That's where you got to meet people. In these, there was only maybe like a handful of rehearsal studios in Brooklyn that had rock and metal players in it and stuff, and it was all like teenagers, all people around my age at the time. And my boss, who he managed to become friends with people like Brian Johnson from AC/DC.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. And like Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden, he became friends with. And I remember this was now, I had been playing for a couple of years. And actually I was playing in a band with Kenny from Typo at this point.
Oh yeah.
And I remember we drove up to Westchester to go see Nico do a drum clinic. First time I had ever gone to a drum clinic was to go see Nico, and we were hanging out with Nico afterwards and stuff. And then he became friends with AJ Perro from Twisted Sister.
Okay.
Great drummer.
A great drummer and severely underrated.
Yes.
And we used to work together at the studio for a while. I had met AJ right after he was quitting Twisted Sister when I met him. This was in the 80s. This was like in the mid 80s, like 86, something like that. And I was like 18. And AJ would come. AJ for a longest time would give me drumsticks and all kinds of stuff here. Like, give me like packs of sticks from his endorsers and stuff. He always looked out for me. And
that's cool, man.
I had drum tech for him. He played a couple of other bands that were in the New York area and stuff. I had tech for him a couple of times. And then he taught. He had students and stuff, and he would do that from time to time. And me and my buddy, my best friend at the time, we both played. We talked AJ into teaching again. So I had gone to AJ for lessons for a couple of months. And when you walked into his house, like he would give lessons. He would teach at his mother's house. He had the kit set up in the basement and stuff like that. And you walked into his house, and I am not exaggerating. It was like it was a shrine. And AJ, when I say he's severely underrated, the guy was touring in big bands when he was a kid.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. He was playing big band stuff, actually. And I asked him not long before he passed away, I was hanging out with him. And I remember him telling me the story, and I wasn't 100% sure of it, but I knew there was a Gene Krupa connection.
And
that's
my favorite drummer. Yeah.
Right. So I'm hanging out with AJ, and I was like, I know you told me the story. I was like, what's the connection with Gene Krupa? I said, you used to take lessons from Gene? And he's like, well, not exactly. Gene had seen him play as a kid, playing in big band. And Gene became friends with AJ's parents.
Okay.
Through AJ, through AJ performing with the big bands and stuff. And so AJ and his parents would go to Gene's house for Sunday dinners and stuff like that.
Wow.
And so AJ got some pointers from Gene, but he wasn't exactly a student. Mm-hmm. But they became family friends.
That's cool.
But being around people like that, they rub off on you.
Right. So now I like to boast that I have a little bit of Gene DNA.
Yeah.
Gene
there you go.
Yeah. Because I took lessons from AJ. So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
The Krupa Gene.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Nice.
You know what? I got the privilege to see AJ play at the Bonzo Bash.
Right. That was
NAMM
one of the things we were hanging out.
Yeah.
They did a Bonzo Bash on the East Coast.
Yeah. On the East Coast. Yeah. He did the one in Anaheim for NAMM, Winter NAMM. And, it's the who's who of drummers all playing, sitting in doing one song, one Led Zeppelin song with a Zepp cover band. And and AJ was a standout. It was insane.
AJ was always over. AJ's playing was, I can't stress it enough how underrated he was. And I remember at the time, this was back when I was 18 and stuff. He had gone and did a drum clinic. It was funny as a kid. I'm hanging out with Bill Ludwig III and AJ, and we're meeting these other people, and our studio wound up being endorsed by Ludwig.
Wow.
No kidding, really?
And we had we had a couple of Ludwig Super Classic kits and stuff, and it was great. And AJ came back from a clinic, and he had a videotape, and he threw it on the TV in the lobby of the studio. It was him and Alan White from Yes doing a clinic together.
Wow.
And trading bars. One of the most amazing to this day. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Cool,
man.
Wow.
Watching AJ rehearse was better than watching him perform.
So what did he have
him
you
just being in the studio screwing around?
When you were studying with him, what did he have you work on? What were some of the lessons that he gave you? Reading, whatever. What would you work on?
When I was trying to convince him to take him out of retirement from teaching, he was at the time I said, I want to go for lessons, and he was like, why? He's like, you can play. I was like, yeah. I was like, yes, I could play. I was like, but I never learned how to play the right way. I said, I know I'm doing things wrong. I said, I'm just going by with, what I hear, and I'm just trying to make it happen. I said, but I know that there's things that I'm doing incorrectly. I said, and I was like, I want to learn how to read charts. I said, I want better, better, even how I'm holding the sticks. I said, I want to start from the right way to properly play. And he was like, okay, fair enough. Right. Be at my house Monday. Meet me at my mother's Monday afternoon.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Johnny, so
we literally started like, from the very beginning.
So you started like on rudiments and just reading groove and stuff.
I didn't know how to do a rudiment or a paradiddle or a radamachu or none of that stuff. I didn't know. I didn't even know what the terms were when he was introducing them to me.
Right.
I just like as a kid, like, I just got behind a kit and just started playing, and I was just like, learning from, slowing down Metallica records.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I think it sounds like this, or like, and just try to emulate it. And
I think
I didn't know how to do any of that stuff.
That speaks volumes, because we've all, as the four of us as teachers, you run into a lot of times where people are great drummers, right? They're a great player, but they may not know they may not know how to play the rudiments. They may not know how to read. They may not understand a chart or something like that. And setting the ego aside and saying, hey, teach me, that's a big thing. And how old were you at that time? You said, but I'm sorry.
I was like 23, 24 years old when I started lessons from him. Yeah. So I've been playing.
So you're already in there. You're in the game.
A year later, I'm in Type O Negative.
Wow.
So Johnny, so you landed in Type O Negative, and you guys were playing, the slower doom metal, goth metal, in Brooklyn. And so how did it get discovered? I would imagine there weren't very other bands really playing that. Like, how did you guys make it work and get known?
Peter had a band previously before Type O called Carnivore, and they were big. They were popular locally.
Did they record?
And, yeah, they put out 2 records on Roadrunner.
Oh, okay.
And being even though I joined the band the band was formed in '89. They put out 2 records and an EP before I joined the band. And but we're all the same circle of friends, so to speak, like that rehearsal studio that I worked at and stuff. And even though like I was a late addition to the band, that I replaced the original drummer, we were all within walking distance from each other's homes. We were all like, like for instance, Josh, the keyboard player in Type O, he had a studio in his house, and I recorded a bunch of times at his house. So I knew Josh from recording. Kenny, I played in a band with, and then even before I joined the band, I even worked for Type O a couple of times, like doing driving and stuff, and so it was like the same like inner circle of people. So when Carnivore broke up, basically they broke up because the drummer got a job working for the MTA. Peter got a job working for the Parks Department, and they really weren't. They didn't have any ambitions to be, like to make it.
Yeah.
And then Peter, shortly thereafter, wound up forming Type O Negative, and Type O Negative was again more of a popular local band.
Okay.
And Carnivore had like that slower stuff in it, but Carnivore was more hardcore influence. Like they would play like CBGBs a lot, play the matinees at CB's. And so they were kind of like this hardcore, like crossover into metal things, like, hardcore with Black Sabbath riffs in between. Mm-hmm. And Type O Negative was more of an extension of the slower stuff. But the first record has a lot of that, like, like that Carnivore, that hardcore, that New York hardcore influence on it.
Yeah.
And the second record there's a little bit of it, and it kind of got away from it.
Yeah.
It kind of got away from it and started really becoming more of its own thing. And then that's the record. We toured on that record. We toured on Bloody Kisses for 18 months.
Wow.
Straight. We were on the road straight. So it's like when I joined the band, it was one of those situations where like, Peter did not want to tour.
Okay.
He hated touring. So it was like, like, don't quit your day job.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of band. And for me, I was an auto mechanic on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. It really wasn't that hard to agree to that. Mm. And I was at the time, I was like, I don't care what we do. I said, I just want to be in the band. I was like, I love the music, and whether we, tour or whether we just play Lemoore's every 3 months, I'm fine. I just want to be a part of it. And then a few months in, Bloody Kisses had been out now for about like 5 or 6 months. And it really wasn't, obviously we weren't promoting the record. We weren't touring. We weren't doing anything like that. So the record really wasn't doing anything. It wasn't selling. People weren't really taking a notice. And then I get a call from our manager while I'm at work. And he's like, hey, can you get some time off? I was like, what are we talking? And he was like, about 6 weeks. I was like, 6 weeks? Like, do you leave my job for 6 weeks? I don't even get 2 weeks vacation at this job.
Yeah.
And I was like, I said, I thought we weren't a touring band. I thought we weren't going on the road. And he was like, well, Peter said that he would go away. He would go on tour.
All right, Peter.
So I was like, all right. I managed somehow to get the time off and still keep my job. And so we went on tour. We did that tour. It went well, and it was all clubs. We were playing like, small clubs. At this point, Type O Negative is virtually an unknown band. So we're playing some places, we're more closer to the Northeast and stuff. The attendance is a little bit better. We start getting into the Midwest, like Chicago and Detroit's okay. We start getting to the West, and, people have no idea who Type O Negative is. So we're playing empty rooms and, things like that. But overall, the trip was successful. Not monetarily.
Yeah.
That happens.
Not monetarily.
Yeah.
My first tour, right? We went away for 6 weeks. I came home with $750.
Yeah.
So I covered my phone bill and my car insurance, and I was really grateful that I was still living with my mother.
Yeah. And
then from there, then it was like, can you get more time off? And I'm like, what happened? Like, you're figuring that we would just do that tour and that would be it. That would be the end of it. Everybody go back to work, go back to your day jobs, whatever. Maybe play Lemoore in a month or so or whatever. And it was like 9 Inch Nails called.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
9 Inch Nails. They're about to go on tour. It's a short run. It's only like a dozen shows on the West Coast, starting in Seattle, working your way down the West Coast. The support band that was supposed to do it broke up like 4 days before the tour started.
Wow.
So we got the call asking if we'd be interested in doing it. And we jumped in a minivan and drove cross country to the Moore Theater in Seattle.
Wow.
And we did those shows and got literally no reaction. Nothing.
Huh.
Really?
Yeah. Like they weren't, all they were interested in seeing was 9 Inch Nails. They didn't care who else was on stage, who else was on before that. So
play to a room full of people going like this.
Nothing. Literally no response.
That hurts, man.
It was my job to settle the merch every night, which was very easy because if we didn't sell one shirt, we sold none. So it was very easy. It was really easy to settle up at the end of the night. And I remember Peter saying one night he was like, somebody threw something on stage. Like if you're going to throw something, throw money.
Yeah.
and it started raining change onto
Oh my God.
Oh God.
And so anyway, we thought that trip was a terrible disaster. And we go home. I go back to work, and I get a call from my manager again. He's like, "Can you get more time off work?"
For what?
And I'm like, what happened now? He's like, what? Motley Crue just offered us the tour.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this was when John Corabi was singing in the band. Vince Neil had left the band. John Corabi was in the band, and they did that. They did the self-titled record.
I saw that tour.
So we were like, at the time, I was like, why would we go on tour with Motley Crue? I was like, we're just going to get hit with garbage and vegetables. I said, I like Motley Crue. And King's X was on the bill also. So I said, I love King's X. I was like, I like Motley Crue. I was like, I was like, it's going to be nice for me. I said, I think it's a terrible idea to have Type O Negative on the same stage. And our manager was like, trust me, this will be a good thing for you. And so I got the time off work, and that was happening in the summer. There was still this window in between, you know, when Nine Inch Nails ended and Motley Crue was starting. And our manager put us back on the road. Now we were playing clubs, and we went back to all those cities that we played with Nine Inch Nails. And every room was packed.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. And so they those fans, they weren't interested in us at that moment. They just wanted to see Nine Inch Nails, but I guess they remembered us, and we went back, and then they came back, and now they became Type O Negative fans. And it was a relatively successful trip. So we wound up working the clubs until the Motley Crue tour started. And then we stayed out with Motley Crue that whole summer. And that's when people started taking notice of Type O Negative. That's when we started getting a little bit more. We were starting to get some airplay, and MTV was now starting to push us a little bit and stuff. We got on Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. Oh, what did Beavis and Butthead say? Were you cool?
Yes, we were cool. He compared us. I mean, they were making fun of Peter's baritone voice, which I thought was really funny. And they were headbanging. They were headbanging real slow, and they go, "Oh."
Yeah.
And he said something. He was like, this is kind of a cross between Megadeth and my butt. and Beavis was like, "That's not very nice, butthead." And he goes, "No, my butt's cool." And I was in a bar in Hollywood when I saw it, when they aired it for the first time, and I was like saying, it's like, it'd be really funny if they made fun of us. I was like, there's a lot to make fun of.
Yeah.
And it's no sooner than it came out of my lips, I saw our video on their show, like they were goofing on Black Number One, and I was like, oh shit. And
That's hilarious.
and then when I saw that they liked it at that time, Beavis and Butthead were like the de facto music critics of the hard rock and heavy metal. They made or break people.
Yeah, like Warren. I think they wrecked Warren's career.
They wrecked Winger.
Winger,
they killed
Winger.
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 Yeah.
Winger.
I remember this guy standing on the edge of Wuss Cliff. His teeth are whiter than white. I'll never forget that. I was like, oh my God, they just destroyed those guys.
Yes.
So Johnny, I don't know if you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I had seen that now they embraced us. And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, put your helmet on. I was like putting my helmet on. I was like, it's like this ride's going to get a little bumpy.
Here we go. Yeah.
And then from there, then it started picking up, and then we would just continue to stay on the road. And then we we went out when we were going to Europe, back and forth, bouncing back and forth between Europe and the States, getting better gigs, everywhere. And then we were getting also bigger support acts. We went out with Danzig, and then we went out with Pantera. We stayed out with Pantera we toured with them for like 3 months. Oh. And at that point, for Pantera was the peak of their success with Far Beyond Driven. And we were, it was like the peak of our success too. Like, we were at that point, we were selling a lot of records every week. And that was like the best tour I've ever been on in my life. I'm impressed that I can even remember part of it. But my liver still like winces in pain when I even mention the name Pantera. But it truly was a rolling insane asylum, but it was great. And then we wound up developing lifelong friendships with them and stuff. And it was a lot of fun, and it was great for Type O. And then we weren't even done yet. We did that tour, and then after that, we stayed out on our own, and then we went out and we finished touring for Bloody Kisses. We went out the following summer. This is now a year later. The following summer with Queensryche.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that with the original lineup?
Yes, it was the last tour with Chris DeGarmo. That was the last tour.
So that would have been what? What was that record?
95. Promised Land.
Promised Land. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
And so we did that, and then I think we may have gone to Europe one more time, and then by the end of the year, then we were finally finished on that record. And then we started working on October Rust. Like once we got home, I think we literally like took a few days off and started with rehearsals. We were only home for 6 months. We wrote October Rust was written and recorded within 6 months, and we were back on the road with opening up for Ozzy.
That's
Wow.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Great
And
story.
and is that where you obviously you made the connection when you got into Danzig? And I don't mean to bypass that record, but we're getting close to the end of the show, and I know you were in Danzig too. How long were you? How long were you in Danzig? Is that how you ended up making that connection to get that gig?
I think the connection was there with that because you know, he was obviously familiar with the band and familiar with, I guess, like, you know, like what I look like, and, you know, got an idea of how I played and stuff. But really, it worked out. Crew guys that worked for Type O were now working for Danzig.
Oh,
and
okay.
Then I had seen a post on, like, you know, like one of the metal news wires that D.E.C had left Danzig to join Queens of the Stone Age. And I saw that they had some European tour dates coming up, and they were coming up rather soon. So I just reached out. I wasn't doing anything. Type O was on a break, and I was home. I was literally home with my daughter was not even 2 years old, so I was just home. You know, we were working on music and, you know, whatever, and just home being dad. And I saw these dates, so I reached out to them to see if they needed somebody to fill in. You know, like I said, it was a short trip. It was only a couple of weeks. I was like, it'd be cool. You know, I probably could do. You know, I thought I could fit the bill well. You know, with the way that I play, I thought I could do a good job with it. And wound up going out to LA, doing an audition. This was in 2003.
Okay.
I go out, do an audition. And then they had decided that they wanted to deal. They chose another guy because he was local, and he didn't have any other commitments. Where I had my priority was Type O negative, and so they went with him, and it didn't work out. They called me up like a couple of weeks later, and then I wound up going to Europe with Glenn on that trip. And then when I came back, did a couple other shows, got another drummer for himself. And they did some shows, worked on a record. Then after the record was done, he called me up and was like, "Hey, do you want to come out on tour? You know, he's got tour dates coming up." And Type O was on a break. I was like, "Yeah, sure." That was 20 years ago.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Johnny, so
I was in Danzig. I don't want to even say like that I'm not in Danzig now, because like if the like I'm still on very good terms with Glenn and the band and stuff. And it's just like, if the schedules work out, I would definitely do it in a minute.
There was a club out here when I first moved to California called Jezebel's, and it was like the Orange County version of where the Sunset Strip, you know, the Whiskey, the Roxy, and Gazzari's, and Jezebel's was like Orange County's Gazzari's, and Danzig played there all the time. Yeah, I used to see him in the club all the time. Yeah, so that was a cool band.
Yeah,
that was a fun band.
Glenn moved out to California like in the mid to late 80s. He left New York, and he's been out there since. So, you know, for him to play, you know, locally or something, he'd always do stuff like that, like, you know, play like the smaller clubs. He'd play, you know, like the Whiskey and the Roxy, and, you know,
yeah.
But I even saw him play. I was in town. I went to go see him play at the Key Club, which was
yeah.
I know the Key Club. Yeah,
Johnny. So can you tell us a little bit about your approach to the slow groove to Type O? Like, how do you ever keep those tempos without rushing?
I double time the time in my head.
Double in your head.
Yeah. So something in my body's always moving in double time, like the heel of my foot. Like I'll pivot the heel and the ball of my foot on the hi-hat.
Yeah.
Yep. So something's always there. So that there'll be, you know, you're playing at like 60 beats per minute. I have to have something in there, you know, to keep the time going.
Right. So the song might be 60, but you're feeling 120.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's when I record also, the click's always in double time. So there's always something there there's always something there for me to grab onto instead of just guessing, like a 1,
Right.
2.
Right. Right.
And that was something like even things like where I wouldn't be leading in a song, I wouldn't be leading. Like if it was something that Peter would do, I would watch Peter's foot. I wouldn't be listening to his bass. I'd watch his foot because he would be doing the same thing, kind of like a horse, like Mr. Ed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how we would all key on each other.
Yeah.
Like that.
Wow.
So there was always something moving in double time.
There it is. Well, we lost a great one when Pete Steele passed. His voice. I mean that had to be really, really hard for you. So
his voice, it was his character.
Yeah.
And just like his character. I mean, it was, to me, he was just a normal guy. He was just your typical guy from Brooklyn with sarcasm and one-liners and things like that.
Yeah.
And the way that Peter's presence was portrayed in his music, a lot of it really was different and contrasting. But really, the thing, not so much his voice as it was his bass playing.
Yeah,
his bass playing was more unique than his voice. And I've had the honor of playing with such great bass players for so many years outside of Type O. I've been able to jam and play with some amazing bass players and like guys iconic. Even like I play with Rudy Sarzo every weekend, and there was nobody that played a bass the way Peter did.
Yeah.
It's truly a unique experience to work with, and to it makes me it made me see like songwriting completely very differently. And it wasn't just just holding down the bottom end. I mean, even his bass tone, it was almost like a baritone guitar. It was like a baritone guitar that was also that doubled as a keyboard, and then it would also be holding down the low end on the bass as well. It was a musical instrument. It wasn't percussive like a bass is usually percussion. Like Peter really approached it in such a unique way. There was like this perfect blend of like Paul McCartney, John Entwistle, like John Paul Jones, Geezer Butler, and take throw like Elton John in there.
Yeah. And it wasn't just live. I wasn't just in the studio too. My wife and I saw you guys in Anaheim in I think it was 2009, somewhere in there. And it was done live too, if you could feel it.
That's just the way that he approached the instrument.
Yeah.
And it really was something unique. It's so unto itself. I've seen people like Type O fans on like YouTube and stuff, like doing play along videos and stuff like that. There are people that can do something similar, but to have the vision and the creativity to come up with the things that he did and approach the instrument that way, I've yet to encounter another person like that.
Yeah. Johnny, and you can't really, you can't ever replace a guy like that, but
no.
Fans would love to see the music back, though. They would love to see it, but how do you do that, right?
You could do it as a cover band, like
right,
all the the recipe is out there.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing. It's like my grandmother's meatballs.
Yeah, right.
You can imitate them, but there's only one.
Right. Yeah. And the only person that got close was my mother. And we all agreed, the family all agreed that, while my mother's meatballs were amazing, grandma's were a little bit more over the top.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, the same thing with like Peter's bass playing. It really, like I said, it was, it's one thing to whatever, cover a song or something. And it's all there. All you got to do is just put the puzzle together and you can figure it out.
Right.
But when you're on the other side of it, where you're creating something, and then you have where you have these, this vision in your head of of music where it's like, like I was explaining this to my wife not that long ago. She was like, because like the way a casual listener will listen to music and the way a musician will listen to a song, I was like, I said, I see music. I don't hear it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah.
So like when I'm hearing a song, I'm figuring out what the drummer's playing, and I'm visualizing it in my head about how they're going about playing it. Same thing, like with any of the instruments in the song. And there's only there's a few bands where I will just listen to it for the sake of listening to them. That's the Beatles, and like the Rolling Stones. I usually don't listen to the song where I'm breaking it down and like what's he doing here? What's this person? What's that guitar lick or whatever? But just listening to the song and just absorbing it and enjoying the music as a work. And there's only a couple of bands that I would do that with, and obviously, but like any other thing, it's like you're dissecting it, you're breaking it down, you're visualizing, like what they're playing. And it doesn't matter, what band it is or whatever. It's like I'm automatically, I gravitate, actually listening to music, I gravitate towards bass players, the bass lines and everything.
Right.
And like I'm a huge fan of Motown.
Yeah,
There you go.
and Jameson. The best.
Yeah, and I try to take that approach, the way that drums were applied in Motown, and I try to apply that in what I'm doing, like in hard rock and metal and stuff. It's like, and I think it brings it's a very simplistic, like a more groove focused thing where it's a foundation of something, and then all the other layers can build upon that. Where I'm always trying to leave space for other instruments instead of trying to take up all that space and say, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like I try to present it with, look at all this.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of the team.
And, I had to learn how to do that by playing in Type O Negative, because there were so many layers in the music and stuff, and there was so many things going on all at the same time. If you had somebody that was really overplaying it in the sense of like really doing too much, it would take away from the overall picture.
Actually, you might have already answered my question I was about to ask, and you can just say I already answered it. But I was going to ask you, as an experienced veteran drummer who's had all kinds of success, what do you know now that you wish you had known when you were 22? What would you tell your younger self?
Oh man, I don't know. I was like, it was always, like I've always approached this as every day was going to be the last day. That it was like the wheels are falling off the bus constantly, and it's like do I have a career tomorrow? I've been doing that for 30 years, where I wake up in the morning and go, this has to be the day that it all ends. But I've always kept I've kept a kid-like mentality towards it, where I've always tried to enjoy it as if it is the last show. That's the last gig, like that's it. It's come tomorrow. It's all over, and go, whatever, get a job, start a new career, doing something else. And I've tried to enjoy it in that sense, and I've always tried to be a student of what I'm doing too. I've always wanted to be the weakest person in the room.
Yeah.
I've always tried so that I could learn to learn to be a better player, to be a better musician, and I think that's also helped me be a better person.
That's well
good
said.
advice.
I like that last part. It made me a better musician, but it made me a better person. I think
right, because you have to it's a very being in a band, is a very social construct.
We talked about that at Payson. It's all about
important. It's important to learn how to be able to play well with others.
Yeah.
No. It really is an environment that's mostly filled with people that did not get along well with others.
Right.
Like most of the 9 out of 10 times, everybody in the band, they were last to get picked for the team in school, and they didn't really, they couldn't get the girl, and they were like these outcasts, these loners. And now you put them in a room with a bunch of people, and then they figure out that they're good at something, and then it creates this whole other host of challenges.
Right. Well,
And,
Johnny, you've played well today with others, I have to say.
Thank you so much.
So it's always been like that, like, to try to like being in a band, like, there's only 1 hour where being in a band where you have to be good at your instrument. It's the other 23 hours out of the day that really matter, that really determine whether you're going to stay in that band or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's such a great,
Completely,
great
man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
Last
that's
question
to me has like been the very important thing to learn.
Oh,
Yeah.
Great answer. Thank you for that.
Last question, and it's going to be different than the normal last question. Why is Evel Knievel behind you? Chip and I have to know the answer to that if you want to know the truth. We're both Evel Knievel fans. Why Evel Knievel?
Okay, Evel Knievel gave me a lot of bumps and scars when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And without a doubt, I destroyed a number of bicycles trying to emulate him. He was a mainstay in my daily life in the 70s as a child. And really, I forget what happened. I wound up buying I found like an Evel Knievel shirt on Amazon, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely getting that. And then I was like, I found some pictures of Evel Knievel like online. And I was like, and I had this like saved on my desktop, and I was like, that'll make a good background in my in my StreamYard.
Yeah.
I love it.
Johnny, move to the side so we can see him one more time. Look at him.
There he is. There he is.
Man. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah.
Right on,
Johnny,
man.
Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for coming on the
much,
show, Johnny. It's great time, man. Great time. Thank you so much
for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
It's a blast. Thank you
Really-
so much for joining
Really nice
us.
to meet you all. Thank you again, Chip. Appreciate
Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it, man.
Great to see you again. All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks
All right,
again.
We'll see you,
soon.
Johnny.
All right,
We'll
thanks,
see y'all
Johnny.
next
We'll
week.
take it out with some Motown instead of some punk.
There you go.
There you
Go
go.
for it. Go for it.